workplace incidents, for the most part, are pretty much unavoidable. It could be something small, like tripping on an extension cord, or it could be much more serious, like a fire or a broken bone on a worker. In either case, these should all be reported and investigated to help prevent reoccurrence. But do you know the process to deal with an investigation when something happens? Has your employer ever discussed what the responsibilities are for the crew on site when an incident occurs? Who do you call? What information do you need? What happens next? The list goes on. The type of investigation may vary depending on the severity of the reported incident. Now, for something small like first aid treatment, workers should complete a first aid log as a record of what happened to them. You may need to prove that your injury occurred at work should a little cut on your finger or hand turn out to get infected and then get worse. In the instance of a near miss, this should be reported to the worker safety representative or the supervisor and documented with the basics of what happened and how it happened. But for something more serious, there is a process to investigate that incident and find the direct and indirect causes, as well as come up with these preventative measures to help make sure this does not get more serious or even happen again. Did you know that the Manitoba building construction workers had WCB claims averaging approximately 109 severe injuries annually and approximately 17,000 days lost per year due to injuries? You can see why it's important to conduct an investigation properly and thoroughly. So let's take a look more in depth at the reporting and investigation process. The Manitoba Workplace Safety and Health Regulation, Part 2.6, clearly defines what a serious incident includes. It is a legal responsibility to report these serious incidents to the supervisor and or employer when they occur. There are several factors to consider as to why it occurred. Something was missed on the initial hazard assessment. The worker wasn't trained properly in the safe work procedure of the task. Tools or equipment have not been maintained to the manufacturer's standards. When a serious incident is reported to Workplace Safety and Health, they will need the following information: the names and addresses of each person involved in the incident, the name and address of the employer or employers of the people involved, the names and addresses of all witnesses, the date, time, and location of the incident, the apparent cause, and the circumstances around it. Once the site supervisor has been made aware of the incident, they must secure the scene. It is a legal requirement that nothing is moved or altered from the scene except to prevent another incident from occurring for at least 24 hours after notice has been given to the Workplace Safety and Health Branch. All right, the incident or near miss has happened and been reported. So now what? Well, as I mentioned earlier, the type of or level of investigation may vary depending on the severity of that incident. As well, a report should be completed as verification to the investigation actually happening. Your company or a prime contractor may have an investigation policy in its safety manual that should be discussed during your orientation. If it's there, give it a read and be sure you understand what your employer's requirements and expectations are. If no such policy exists, or you have one but can't find it, you can also review the Manitoba Regulation Part 2.9, Sections 2 and 3. So here's a very common question that is asked. If nothing serious happened, do I still have to fill out a form? In short, yes. All incidents need to be reported and investigated to the extent they warrant. This even includes first aid. As previously mentioned, workers don't need to do an investigation for a cut finger they put a Band-Aid on. As this is a work injury, they do need to complete a first aid log, stating who was injured, what happened, and when it happened. The reason we need to report all incidents, including a near miss, is to help prevent reoccurrence. If we know what happened and how it happened, we can hopefully reduce the chances of it happening again. To help with this prevention, supervisors and employers need to ensure that all workers understand the importance of completing these forms. Nobody gets in trouble for reporting an incident, but an employer could get in trouble from Workplace Safety and Health for not reporting an incident, especially a serious one. This may be an improvement order, a stop work order, or a monetary fine of up to $5,000. The corrective actions outlined within the report should be a main focus for the supervisor or employer. They want to ensure that this type of incident doesn't happen again. Make sure the actions identified are attainable and realistic. A follow-up should also take place to ensure that the corrective actions are implemented and effective. Once completed, this form needs to be submitted to the employer and the site superintendent. Since the incident occurred on a site, the person in charge of that site needs to know the result of the investigation. They may also assist with the investigation, as they could have things identified on the report that they are accountable for. These reports should be reviewed in safety committee meetings or toolbox talks to identify what happened. Not necessarily who was involved, but just the circumstances around the incident. This way, everyone in the company can be aware of other things they should be on the lookout for. The employer should also be tracking these incidents with the nature and type of injuries that occurred. This will show a trend, and the employer can use these trends to alter or update safe work procedures or offer additional training where required. There are numerous types of templates available for investigation reports. The form your employer uses may vary from job site to job site, but all the information required will be the same. If you need a template, the CSAM website has a free download which you can access anytime. I'm going to briefly review what a near miss is. It's common for workers to think that nothing needs to be reported because nothing actually happened. Or they think that a very minor injury is a near miss because it could have been worse, like a first aid thing. By definition, a near miss is something that could have resulted in an injury or property damage. So if something actually did happen, regardless of how severe it is not a near miss. It is an incident. As an example, if a tool or piece of equipment falls off something at height and doesn't hit anyone or causes any damage to the tool or equipment, then that is a near miss. If a worker slips on ice but doesn't fall or get injured, that again is a near miss. Why is it important to report near misses if nothing happened? Because the next time that exact same scenario happens, it may cause a serious incident. If a tool falls off scaffolding and hits a worker on the shoulder or their back as they're bent over, that may be a lost time injury. But all of that may have been prevented from occurring a second time if a tow board was put up on the guardrail system or workers used tool lanyards after the first time a tool dropped. Workers should fill out the near miss form with the appropriate information. If the employer or site has a separate form for near misses, ensure that this is completed and submitted as well. Hopefully, you can see how these are not to be taken lightly. Again, nobody gets in trouble for reporting anything. It is actually in the Manitoba Regulation, Part 2.9, Section 3, subsections B to G, that these get investigated. It is referenced there as a dangerous occurrence. Let's wrap this up with a quick summary. Identify the incident that occurred. Include the who, what, when, where, and especially the how. All this information goes onto your incident report. Be sure to fill it out completely, and if you're not sure about some of the information to include, ask a supervisor. Communicate the results of the investigation to the safety committee or other workers in a toolbox talk. Everyone should be aware of what happened and how it happened and how to fix it going forward. Workers may encounter a very similar situation on another site later. This way, they can be aware of a particular scenario to watch out for. And control the scene. If it's a serious incident, make sure that scene is safe and no one else will get hurt. All the equipment is locked out and there is no chance of something else occurring. Another part of that control is the corrective actions. These actions help reduce the chances of another incident occurring in the same scenario. So don't be afraid to report an incident and ask questions to your supervisor or your worker safety rep. If there is anything that CSAM can assist you with, please reach out to one of our safety advisors or client service advisors for direction and clarification. Check out our website at constructionsafety.ca for additional resources and downloads. Until next time, stay safe out there.